His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Krishna. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Govani Pachayane Nirvishesha Shanivadi Bhastadadi Shatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, The Creation, Chapter 14, The Disappearance of Lord Krishna, Text 34. Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsala kachit pure sudarmayam sukham aste suridvrita. Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsala kachit pure sudarmayam sukham aste suridvrita. Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsala kachit pure sudarmayam sukham aste suridvrita. Everyone chant, please.
Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsala kachit pure sudharmayam sukhamaste suridvrita.
Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsala kashit pure sudharmayam sukhamaste suhridvrita.
Bhagavan api govindo brahmaya bhaktavatsala kachit pure sadharmayam sukhamaste suridvrita.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Bhagavano api govindo brahmano bhaktavatsala kashit puri sudharmayam shukamaste suhidvrata. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsalaha kachit pure sudharmayam sukham aste suhridvritaha. Hare Krishna.
Bhagavan api govindo brahmanyo bhaktavatsala kachit pure sudharmayam sukhamaste suhridvrita.
Anyone else? Very good. Word for word translation. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Krishna. Api, also. Govinda, one who enlivens the cows and the senses. Brahmanya, devoted to the devotees of the Brahmanas. Bhaktavatsala, affectionate to the devotees. Kachit, whether. Pure, in Dwarakapuri, Sudharmayam, pious assembly, Sukham, happiness, Aste, does enjoy, Suritvita, surrounded by friends. Translation. Is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, the senses, and the brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarakapuri, surrounded by his friends. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Here, in this particular verse, the Lord is described as Bhagavan, Govinda, Brahmanya, and Bhaktavatsala. He is Bhagavan Swayam, or the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences, all power, all knowledge, all beauty, all fame, and all renunciation. No one is equal to or greater than him. He is Govinda, because he is the pleasure of the cows and the senses. Those who have purified their senses by the devotional service of the Lord can render unto him real service, and thereby derive transcendental pleasure out of such purified senses. Only the impure conditioned living being cannot derive any pleasure from the senses, but being illusioned by the false pleasure of the senses, he becomes servant of the senses. Therefore, we need his protection for our own interest. The Lord is the protector of cows and the Brahminical culture. A society devoid of cow protection and Brahminical culture is not under the direct protection of the Lord, just as the prisoners in the jails are not under the protection of the king, but under the protection of a severe agent of the king. Without cow protection and cultivation of the Brahminical qualities in human society, at least for a section of the members of society, no human civilization can prosper at any length. By Brahminical culture, the development of the dormant qualities of goodness, namely truthfulness, equanimity, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, general knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and firm faith in the Vedic wisdom, one can become a Brahmana and thus see the Lord as he is. After surpassing the Brahminical perfection, one has to become a devotee of the Lord, so that his loving affection in the form of proprietor, master, friend, son, and lover can be transcendentally achieved. The stage of a devotee, which attracts the transcendental affection of the Lord, does not develop unless one has developed the qualities of a Brahmana, as above mentioned. The Lord is inclined to a Brahmana of quality and not of false prestige. Those who are less than a Brahmana by qualification cannot establish any relation with the Lord, just as fire cannot be kindled from the raw earth unless there is wood, although there is a relation between wood and the earth. Since the Lord is all perfect in himself, there could not be any question of his welfare, and Maharaj Yudhishthira refrained from asking this question. He simply inquired about his residential place, Dwarakapuri, where pious men assemble. The Lord stays only where pious men assemble and takes pleasure in their glorifying the supreme truth. Maharaj Yudhishthira was anxious to know about the pious men and their pious acts in the city of Dwaraka. Bhagavan api Govindo Brahmanyo Bhaktavatsala Kachit Pure Sudhammayam Sukhamaste Suridvrita. Is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, the senses, and the brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarakapuri, surrounded by his friends. Nama Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Now, of course, in one sense, Yudhishthira Maharaj is just, you'd almost say, like beating around the bush. He knows what the real issue is. He knows what the real disaster is. But he's asking all these questions in hopes that it's not what he is afraid the problem is. And I also appreciate him doing that, giving us a break from, like in that last chapter, those horrible omens, how disturbing, and what it foretells, how awful that was. Of course, it's beautiful hearing it. We learned so much from it, but it's not palatable to hear about the collapse of society and the disappearance of Lord Krishna. So now he's asking all these nice questions out of politeness, and I appreciate him giving us a bit of a respite from that. And I especially appreciate that this verse in particular, it's a real jewel in the middle of this, really giving, I feel, a really excellent and beautiful description of what is God, what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada also stresses in the very beginning of the purport that how the Lord is addressed as Bhagavan, Govinda, Brahmanya, and Bhaktavatsala, and how significant that is. Also in this purport, let's see, yes, in the verse, Kachit Pore Sudharmayam, how is he doing in Sudharma? Now we know that Sudharma is the name of the big assembly house in Dwarka that Krishna got from the heavenly planets. It's actually named Sudharma. But in the translation here, he's taking the name Sudharma in a general sense. Sudharma means a good dharma or excellent dharma. So he's saying, is everything going well in that assembly, in that dharmic assembly? Taking it in a general way, not just talking about a particular building, but the assembly of all of his friends and associates at Dwarka. All of them are Sudharma. They're the highest qualified dharmic person. So he's taking it in that way, which is nice. That Krishna, he's associating, who does he associate with? He associates with Sudharma. Prabhupada mentions this in the purport also. Where is that? The Lord stays only where pious men assemble and takes pleasure in their glorifying the supreme truth. Let me see if I could dredge this out of my brain. Who can refresh my memory that that you won't find me? What's that? Yogi Nam Hridaya Shuva. I'm just getting bits and pieces of it in my head. That Krishna says in one of the Puranas, you won't find me in the hearts of the yogis. You won't find me at the sacrifice, but you'll find me where my devotees assemble and chant my glories. Yoginam Hridaya Shuva. I can't remember any more of the shloka, I'm sorry. But that's what Krishna says. You won't find me in these other places where you might expect to find the Lord, in the hearts of the devotees, at the place of sacrifices. But you'll find me that Krishna appears where the devotees gather and glorify him. So this is Dwarka. This is the wonderful place, Dwarka, where the devotees are all assembled to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's addressed in different ways in today's beautiful verse. Govinda. Bhagavan Api Govindo. Prabhupada explains Govinda means the Lord of the cows, the Lord of the senses, the controller of the cows and the senses. Go in Sanskrit actually has many different meanings. It also means land, like the pasture ground of the cows is go. Thunderbolt is go. Go also means the stars in the sky, or water, or speech. So whatever the variegated meaning of go is, Krishna is the controller and the Lord of all of those. But specifically, Prabhupada mentions the Lord of the cows, go, and the Lord of the senses, and we'll return to that. Krishna is also Brahmanya. Bhagavan api Govindo Brahmanyo, that he's the Brahmanas are very dear to him. We also know Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Nama. Here also he's called Govinda, but he's Brahmanya Dev. Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. He gives protection to the cows and the Brahmanas. And at least once, maybe more than once, Prabhupada has commented that Krishna says, go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, not Brahmana go Hitaya Cha. So even amongst those who he protects, who he gives protection to, go, the cows come first, even before the Brahmanas. But yes, he's also Brahmanya Devaya, he's also the Lord of the Brahmanas, and he holds the Brahmanas very dear to his heart. And he offers them Hitaya Cha, he offers them all protection and maintenance. And Jagat Hitaya Krishna, he also offers that to the entire creation. Because we can't forget, Krishna is Janmadhyasya Yataha, he's the creator, the maintainer, and the annihilator of everything in the universe. But particularly the cows and the Brahmanas, he takes special pleasure. So what are these Brahmanas we hear about these Brahmanas? Janmana Jayate Sudra. By birth, everyone is a Sudra. It doesn't matter if your father is the biggest Brahmana in the universe. By birth, you're a Sudra. Janmana Jayate Sudra. Because these things are not determined by birth. Samskara Bhavet Dvija. But if you perform the ritualistic ceremonies, the purificatory ceremonies, the different samskaras of life, then you can be qualified as Dvija. You could become twice born. Prabhupada said Dvija also means like birds are twice born, because they're born once when the egg is laid. That's one kind of birth. But then the egg is hatched, and that's a second birth. So similarly, we're all born of a mother, but birth as a Dvija means you have to perform these reformatory processes, all the different samskaras. Then you could actually become Dvija, twice born. Once birth is not enough. Once birth, all the animals have. Therefore, Janmana Jayate Sudra, Samskara Bhavet Dvija. Everyone is born as Sudra or less than Sudra, like an animal actually. But by purificatory process, you can become a Dvija. And that's not the end. Veda Patat Bhaved Dvija. If you study the Vedas, you become learned in the Vedas and develop your faith in the Vedas. That also Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, I think. Let's see if I could quickly find that. Maybe I can't quickly find it. I thought he mentioned about studying the Vedas in this verse. Oh, yes. Talking about the qualities of a Brahmana: truthfulness, equanimity, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, general knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and firm faith in the Vedic wisdom. So this is another step towards Brahmanhood. Firm faith and deep study of the Vedic knowledge. Veda Patat Bhavet Dvija. And then, what's the final step? Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. That a Brahmana is Brahma Janatiti, one who actually knows Brahman, who actually understands spirit. That is a Brahmana. Birth is not enough. Even samskaras are not enough. Even Vedic study is not enough. It has to culminate in actual knowledge of Brahman, actual knowledge of spirit. And what is that knowledge of spirit? Someone claims to understand Brahman. That means understanding Krishna. If you just understand impersonal Brahman, you may be technically Brahmana, but that's not very advanced. Just like if someone says, oh, I understand money because I understand this $5 bill in my hand. You could say, okay, you understand a $5 bill, but there's a lot to money beyond your little $5. There's hundreds, thousands, millions, trillions of dollars. But if you only understand the $5, you could say, okay, you understand that little bit about money, but you don't actually understand the full range of what money is. So someone who understands impersonal Brahman and claims Brahmanhood is like that. It's incomplete, to say the least. So what is understanding Brahman? Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shashwatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibho. This is the Brahman that an actual Brahmana needs to understand. Krishna, who is the supreme Brahman, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, the supreme abode, the resting place of everything. Pavitram, the most pure, the topmost above everything, which again, as Prabhupada says in the purport, no one equal to him and no one greater than him. Full of all opulences, all power, all knowledge, all beauty, all fame, and all renunciation, no one is equal to or greater than him. He is Govinda, from the purport. So this is the Brahmana that Krishna is really interested in, and the kind of Brahmanhood that we should be interested in, not just something official, certainly not by birth, and not even just by, we may get a thread. That's very good, and that's an essential step. But ultimately, the perfection of it is when we understand Krishna. This is the Brahmanhood that we as devotees are interested in, and Krishna is interested, and our sampradaya is interested in. Prabhupada would sometimes talk about his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, gave a very famous lecture. I think he, if I remember correctly, the history, he was asked to give this lecture by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was, maybe because he was indisposed or elderly or was otherwise engaged, he was unable to give the lecture. So he had his son Bhaktisiddhanta give the lecture. And the lecture was Brahmana and Vaishnava. And he started off the lecture glorifying the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are great like this, and the Brahmanas are respected like that, and the Brahmanas are awesome like this. And all the Brahmanas, the caste Brahmanas in the audience were loving it. They were so into, oh, this is what a great lecture. But then he started talking about the Vaishnavas and how the Vaishnava is the supreme position of Brahmanhood, and any Vaishnava is better than any Brahmana. And then, but when they heard that, they were not quite as happy. And Prabhupada said about Bhaktisiddhanta that this was part of the key aspect of his mission, was to defeat this crippled idea of being a Brahmana, this caste Brahmana or materialistic idea of Brahmanhood or limited idea of Brahmanhood. So this is major contribution of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So Brahmana also, let's go back to Govinda now. So Govinda, the Lord of the senses, the giver of pleasure to the senses. This is Krishna. This also means the Supreme Personality of Godhead can only be Govinda. Prabhupada says in the purport that engaging the senses in material life won't give any pleasure, but engaging the senses in Krishna gives full, complete pleasure. This is actually the very definition of devotional service given in Hari Bhakti Vilas and given as evidence in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. What is devotional service? Excuse me. Sarvopadi vinir muktam tatpar twaina nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchite. That you give up your false conceptions of yourself. You give up your false identity, even your Brahmanhood. That's also a false identity. Naham vipro nachad narapatir napi vaisho nasudro. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that's an upadi. You give that up. Sarvopadi vinirmatam. You become free from all of those designations. And rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchite. You engage your senses in the master of the senses. Rishikesh is just another way of saying Govinda, the Lord of the senses, the master of the senses, the controller of the senses. This is Govinda, and this is devotional service. that means devotional service is only actually devotional service in relation to Govinda. If your senses are attracted to matter, or let me put that differently, my senses are attracted to matter, that is a sign that I am not engaged, at the very least, not engaged as I should be in the service of Govinda, if my senses are attracted to matter. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaliya Shanta. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ateva Shanta. Only for the Krishna Bhakta is control of the senses possible. If you're after sense gratification, if you're after liberation, if you're after anything besides Govinda, then you're going to be disturbed. Only the Krishna Bhakta can be peaceful, because only the Krishna Bhakta is rendering service to Govinda, engaging his senses to please the master of the senses, Govinda. So this is Govinda as the master of the senses. Govinda also means the lord of the cows, the master of the cows, the protector of the cows, and the giver of pleasure to the cows. This is a reference to the importance of Brahminical culture, which is based upon cow protection, which Prabhupada says in today's purport. And if I'm remembering correctly, we also discussed in last week's class how cow protection is the basis of Brahminical life. And it's also a reference, a very specific reference to Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, where he is specifically, he's Gopal, he's the protector of the cows. It's not just theoretical, but Krishna is actually in the pasture with the cows, protecting the cows and feeding the cows and watering the cows and taking them out to the forest to graze and bringing them into the pasture at night. It's practical. It's the most practical cow protection, not just an official policy, but he's literally doing it himself. So this is a specific reference to Krishna in Vrindavan. Because I still have Govardhan Puja on the brain, because it happened a couple of weeks ago. I've still been thinking about it. So here's a couple of references from that. After the lifting of the hill was over and the whole thing was done, and Indra and Mother Surabhi went to Krishna in a secluded place to offer prayers and beg for forgiveness, which is also something we discussed a couple of weeks ago, I think. He begged forgiveness and offered brief but very beautiful prayers, and Mother Surabhi did. And then they bathed Krishna. They did the Abhishek of Krishna. Abhishek, of course, we do Abhishek in the temple on occasion, or we bathe the deities every day for those who, or regularly for someone who has home deities. But this Abhishek also has a connotation of installing not just a deity, but when a king is installed in his position of king, there's an Abhishek, there's a bathing ceremony. Even in the Judeo-Christian tradition, you'll find in the Bible that when someone is made king, they anoint his head with oil. So this is like a indirect reference to this bathing process. So when they bathed Krishna, they actually inaugurated him or installed him as the new Indra. Indra is the head of all the gods, but due to his offense, he renounced that position. And he said, no, you are the new Indra. Indra nas twabhishek shyamo, he said, we anoint you as King Indra. That means he's giving up his position of Indra and saying to Krishna, you are the new Indra. Indra nas twabhishek shyamo, abhishek shyamo. We are offering this abhishek to make you as the new Indra. What kind of Indra? Gava Indra. Gava means cow. Gava Indra is contracted as Govinda. And then in the next verse, Indra says, or it is said, Govinda iti chabyadat. They named him, they titled him Govinda at that Abhishek. So this is Indra and Surabhi and all the demigods are present at this Abhishek. And they're saying, you are Govinda. You're the Lord of the cows, and we crown you as the king, the new king, the king of all the cows. And go also means the pasture grounds. So Krishna is the Lord and protector of the pasturing grounds. So specifically, this verse is, by referring to Govinda, is specifically referring to Krishna in Vrindavan. Because all of the devotees love and worship Krishna in Vrindavan. Not just the Vrindavan devotees, the devotees outside of Vrindavan appreciate this as well. For example, in the Bhagavatam, going back a few chapters to Queen Kunti Stotra. Oops, I'm sorry, wrong book. Let's see if I have this marked, I hope. Yes, Queen Kunti prayers. Queen Kunti prays, my dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears, which washed the mascara from your eyes, and you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. Queen Kunti is not a Brijavasi, but she is appreciating and loving, and she knows these Vraja pastimes of Krishna, and she's worshiping them. Or Bhishmadev, his particular rasa is in Vira Ras, and he wants to always see Krishna either in the spiritual world as Vishnu in Vaikuntha, or in this world he has his pastimes of fighting with Krishna, which he very much relishes, but he's also worshiping. He says, this is from the passing away of Bhishma, chapter 9, text 40. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrajadam, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. So here Bhishmadev himself is appreciating Krishna's pastimes, even up to the rasa dance, which he is not a part of and is not in his rasa, but he recognizes that this is Krishna. I worship my Lord in this particular way, Krishna, Vishnu with 4 arms, or fighting on the battlefield. But he understands that the fullest, most complete, most perfect manifestation is Krishna in Vrindavan. So if we want to talk about God, if we want to talk about Bhagavan, the most perfect reference, the most perfect exemplar of that is Krishna himself in Vrindavan. Everyone knows, and Prabhupada references in today's purport also, Parasha Muni's verse, Aishwarasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashatasya Jnana Vairagya Chaiva, whatever after that, all of these 6 opulences, God, Bhagavan, means one who possesses all of these opulences in the fullest degree. Just like Prabhupada said, he was talking with those scholars in the garden at Los Angeles, and he said, someone may say, I have $100, I have $1,000, I have $1 million, but no one can say, I have all the money. That's Krishna. So who possesses all the wealth, all the beauty, all the opulence, everything, that is Krishna. And the 64 qualities of Krishna are mentioned in Nectar of Devotion and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And some of those qualities are qualities that can be possessed, although not in an unlimited degree, but possessed to some degree by jivas, by ordinary living entities. They can have some wealth, they can have some beauty, they can have some degree of these. And then Lord Brahma himself, there are some qualities that ordinary jivas cannot have, but some qualities of those Lord Brahma can have. And then beyond that, there are additional qualities that even Brahma cannot possess these qualities, but Lord Shiva can possess them to some degree. And even beyond that, there are qualities that only Bhagavan, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, can possess. And beyond those, there are 4 more qualities that only Krishna and only Krishna in Vrindavan can possess, above and beyond all of them. So if we want to talk about Bhagavan, who possesses all opulences, ultimately we have to come to the point not only of Vishnu, the Lord of the Vaikuntha planets, but ultimately we come to the point of Krishna in Vrindavan. And those four qualities that only Krishna has. Rupa Madhurya. He has a sweetness of beauty that no one else can match. Any incarnation or manifestation of Vishnu has, as Parasara states, has Shri to unlimited degree. But the beauty of Krishna is even more perfect and more sweet and more unlimited than that. Venu Madhurya. He has the sweetness encompassed by him playing his flute in Vrindavan, which as far as I know, he does not do outside of Vrindavan. So that's another sweetness that puts Krishna in a special category all by himself. Leela Madhurya, the sweetness of his pastimes. Vishnu in all of his pastimes are so sweet and so amazing, and we love it. Like when the holidays come around, the Shringa Chaturdasi, and we love hearing these sweet, amazing pastimes of Nrsingadev coming to protect his devotee and save his devotee, and it's so sweet and so amazing. Or Lord Ramachandra with his devotees, with Sita, rescuing Sita, and with his friend Hanuman, his servant and friend Hanuman, and defeating Ravana. Amazing, sweet pastimes, but the sweetness of his Vrindavan pastimes, as unlimited as the sweetness of Vishnu's pastimes are, the sweetness of the Vrindavan pastimes are even unlimitedly beyond that. And then finally is Prema Madhurya. Prema means, of course, love. So Prema Madhurya means the sweetness of the loving exchange between Krishna and his devotees. And again, I'll say, just like, Krishna, Nrsingadev and Prahlad is of such an unlimitedly sweet relationship. But in Vrindavan, the dealings with the cowherd boys, with his parents, and especially with the gopis, are so unlimitedly sweet beyond that, that we need to come to that level to fully appreciate what is Bhagavan. And again, Prema Madhurya specifically means his relationship with his devotees. And therefore, in today's verse, one of the descriptors of Krishna, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Bhakta Vatsala, that he's so kind to his devotees, and such a protector of his devotees, and so in love with his devotees. And again, all the devotees are glorious who have that relationship with Krishna. And he offers protection, and he offers his love and reciprocation with all of them. But this is perfected in the Vrindavan pastimes. Krishna perfectly reciprocates with them. And that reciprocation also in today's purport, that is why Prabhupada brings up that one needs to come to the point of being a devotee in order to understand Krishna as, again, I'm searching, so that his loving affection in the form of proprietor, master, friend, son, and lover can be transcendentally achieved. These are the 5 rasas, and these are only perfectly and fully manifested in the Vrindavan pastimes. So this is what this verse is saying to me, or at least part of what it's saying to me, is that our fortune is so unlimited that we've been given not just worship of some big mundane man, not just worship of some demigod. I worship Indra so I could get some rain. I worship, what's his name, Kuvera, so I could get some wealth. Or like all those verses in the first canto, you worship Uma to get a wife, and you worship the sun god to get a kingdom, and whatever it is, so many things you worship. No, so much above that. And not even just Vishnu. Now we're Vaishnavas. Vaishnava literally means that we're Vishnus, we're of Vishnu. And we embrace that term, and we're happy with that term. We're Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But ultimately, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us that the highest kind of Vaishnavism is Krishnaism. There's a nice verse. It's quoted in the CC. It's also, I think it's also in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And I think it's originally from one of Srila Rupa Goswami's plays. Vraje Krishna, Sarvaishwarya Prakashe Purnatama, Puri Dwaye Paravyome, Purnatara Purnat. So Vraje Krishna, actually, as a side note, my son's name is Vraja Krishna, a name selected by my wife, and it comes from this verse, which we first originally heard from our spiritual master. Vraja Krishna. So what is Vraja Krishna? Vraja Krishna, Krishna in Vrindavan. Sarvaishwarya Prakashe. Sarvaishwarya means all of the opulences to the topmost degree. Prakashe are manifest. And manifest how? Purnatama, to the most perfect degree. We know Purna. We know the word Purna from, for example, Ishopanishad. Purna means perfect or complete.
Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate.
Yes, thank you. But this is Purnatama. This is the most perfect. So the most perfect manifestation of Krishna in his all opulences, full opulences to the most unlimited degree is Vraja Krishna, Krishna in Vrindavan. Then Puri Dwaye. Puri Dwaye means in the two Puris. Prabhupada in this verse, he says Dwaraka Puri. So Dwaraka is a Puri and Mathura is a Puri. So in those two Puris, Krishna when he's present in Dwaraka, Krishna when he's present in Mathura are Purnatara. Purnatama means most perfect. Purnatara, which is the, what's the term I'm looking for? The superlative form of the adjective. Superlative means the topmost. Purnatara is the comparative form of the adjective. So in the Puris, in Dwaraka, in Mathura, Krishna is more perfect. And Paravyome, in the Paravyom, in the spiritual sky, the Vishnus in Vaikuntha are perfect. So perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. We don't want to overdo this distinction in a way that diminishes the position of Vishnu or in a way that diminishes the position of Krishna in Dwaraka or in Mathura. That's not the correct understanding. But the correct understanding is that despite that, Vishnu being completely perfect in every way, and Krishna in Dwaraka and Mathura being even more perfect in every way, still in Vrindavan, he is most perfect. So this is the teaching, specifically Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach this, worship of Krishna, devotion to Krishna in particular. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, actually for a long time, he had this name in his head, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, even before the society was actually legally or even practically constituted. He had this idea, this name, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And some of the persons at the time said, oh, why call it Krishna consciousness? That seems foreign or that seems sectarian. Why not call it International Society for God Consciousness? And Prabhupada insisted, no, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. For several reasons. Number one, if you say God consciousness, he said, then people will put forward so many gods, so many ordinary people as gods, so many demigods as gods. So to avoid that, and also because he wants us to know that our goal is not only topmost worship of God, but even in the category of worship of God, we're aiming for the topmost aspect of that, worship of Krishna, devotion to Krishna, and a loving relationship with Krishna. As Prabhupada put it several times, he said, if you're going hunting, then you should shoot for the rhinoceros. Because the rhinoceros is such a big, huge animal that even if you're not successful, oh well, but at least you were going for the greatest thing. And if you're successful, then it's the greatest accomplishment. So we want to worship the topmost. Prabhupada also told the humorous story about a simple village man who from his very childhood, he always had the desire that I want to find and serve the greatest person. So in his village, he found the Kartamashai, the village chief, and he approached him and somehow engaged himself in the service of that man and the chief person in the village. And he was doing that for some time. And then one time the governor of that state or province was touring, and he came to the village and he saw that the village chief was bowing down and offering respect to the governor. So the man who wanted to serve the greatest said, I thought you were the greatest. I was serving you, but now I see you're bowing down to someone else. And the village chief admitted, yes, the governor, he's greater than me. So that man approached the governor and engaged himself in the governor's service. And he did that with great satisfaction for some time. And then the king of the entire kingdom came to visit the governor. And the same thing happened. The governor is doing his respects to the king. The man said, oh, the king is higher than you. So he engaged himself in the service of the king himself, the very king. And he thought, now I'm serving the greatest man. And then one day while serving the king left his kingdom with this servant in tow. And he went out to the forest and he approached one simple Brahmana living in a little cottage on the bank of the river. And the king offered his obeisances to that sage in the forest who had nothing, just a little hut, maybe a cow, a little garden, whatever, and bowed down. And again, he asked the king, oh, you're so opulent, you're so powerful, but you're offering your obeisances to this person. And the king admitted, yes, he is greater than me, the sage. So he engaged himself in the service of the sage, saying, I want to serve the greatest. And then that sage explained that Krishna is the greatest, and you should engage yourself in the service of Krishna. And that man went to a Vishnu temple and engaged in the service of the deity there and attained perfection. So this is us. Before we came to Krishna consciousness, some of us may have gone through different paths or different ups and downs and different things, but somehow or other we were brought to this path of approaching the greatest, worshiping the greatest. How fortunate, how amazing is this, that we've approached this thing that we are, by any kind of sane or rational calculation, we are not qualified for. By my past behavior, my sinful life, my cycle of gazillions of lives in the material world, I am not qualified for this. But this opportunity has been given to me by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. This is why one of the qualities of a devotee, specifically the quality of an advanced devotee at the stage of Bhava Bhakti, is Ashabandha. That devotee, he has hope against hope. One at the stage of Bhava, it's described, Kshantir avyarta kalatvam viraktir manna shunyata ashabandha samutkanta namagane sadaruchi asaktis tad gunakyane pritis tad vasati stale ityadayo nubhava syur jata bhavankure jane. That when the seed of bhava arises and awakens and sprouts within the heart of the devotee, then these 9 symptoms arise. Kshantir, he can tolerate all material difficulties. Avyarta kalatvam, he never wastes a moment. He sees that every second of time is engaged in Krishna's service. Viraktir, he's detached from material life. Manashunyata, he's completely devoid of pride. And Ashabandha, he has a great hope within his heart. Asha means hope, and bandha means like bound up or tied up. So he has this hope bound up in his heart. Samutkanta, and he's very enthusiastic to engage in devotional service. Namagane Sadaruchi, he has a great taste for chanting the holy name. Asaktis tad gunakyane, he's completely attached to Krishna Katha. Kritis tad vasati stale, he has love for all of the places of Krishna's pastimes. So these are the symptoms of one at Bhava, but specifically this Ashabandha, this hope, is a very important thing and very significant thing in terms of what we're talking about today. Yes, described by Srila Rupa Goswami, Ashabanda. He says, let's see, what's the meter? Na prema shravana di bhakti rapiva yogo tava vaishnavo jnanam va shubha karma va kiyadaho sajatirapyaspiva hinartadika sadake tvaitata pyachedya mula sati ego bijanavalabha vyatayate ha ha madasaiva. And Prabhupada translates and elaborates on this in Nectar of Devotion, where this is quoted from. He describes this great hope, one of the symptoms of bhava. He says, he writes in Nectar of Devotion, the strong conviction that one will certainly receive the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called in Sanskrit Ashabanda. Ashabanda means to continue to think, because I am trying my best to follow the routine principles of devotional service, I am sure that I will go back to Godhead, back to home. In this connection, one prayer by Rupa Goswami is sufficient to exemplify this hopelessness. He says, quote, I have no love for Krishna, nor for the causes of developing love of Krishna, namely hearing and chanting. And the process of bhakti yoga, by which one is always thinking of Krishna and fixing his lotus feet in the heart, is also lacking in me. As far as philosophical knowledge or pious works are concerned, I don't see any opportunity for me to execute such activities. But above all, I am not even born in a nice family. Therefore, I must simply pray to you, Gopi Janavalabha, Krishna, the maintainer and beloved of the gopis. I simply wish and hope that some way or other I may be able to approach your lotus feet. And this hope is giving me pain because I think myself quite incompetent to approach that transcendental goal of life. If you're a mediocre person or a low person like myself in any field, and you're given information and opportunity to approach the absolute topmost level in any particular field or any endeavor, naturally you're going to feel hopeless. If you're actually lowly, if you're actually thinking yourself lowly, but you have an opportunity for the highest thing, this is a source of real conflicting emotions, that you're humiliated and feeling unqualified and hopeless. But at the same time, you know that by the mercy of someone, you're actually given the opportunity to approach this thing that is the greatest thing. This dilemma or this paradox is Ashabanda. And therefore, this is a symptom of Bhava Bhakti, that you're simultaneously feeling hopeless and at the same time feeling confident and hopeless at the same time. Just like in the list of those 9 symptoms of Bhava Bhakti. The one before Ashabanda is Manashunyata, that you're completely devoid of any sense of pride or material self-worth. And the symptom right after it is enthusiasm. So it's so appropriate that Ashabanda, hope against hope, is right between those two, because it's a synthesis of this total self-abnegation and feeling of unqualification, and yet faith in Krishna and in the process given by Krishna and the process given by Srila Prabhupada, that it can actually take us to the highest level, even as unqualified as you are. So this dilemma is actually, and it's an ecstasy actually, to feel this dilemma, to feel this simultaneously lack of qualification and qualification. And of course, as always, Srila Prabhupada is the most perfect exemplar of any aspect of devotional service, but this in particular, I'll quickly wrap it up with a few verses from Srila Prabhupada's prayers written on the boat Jaladuta while that boat was docked in Boston Harbor. Prabhupada, when he arrived in Boston Harbor, the boat still had to go on the next day to New York, but he took the opportunity to walk around Boston Harbor. I used to live in Boston, in the Boston Temple, and at the time I lived there, the Boston Harbor was about the same as it was when Prabhupada arrived, meaning it was disgusting. It was dirty, and it just had like a few brick warehouses where the red bricks had practically turned black from the filth and the dirty streets, and a few dive bars on the corner and prostitutes walking the street. A truly horrid, disgusting place. And Prabhupada walked around Boston, and he got back on the boat and he wrote this poem. Of course, many years later, the Boston Harbor has been renovated. Now it's a big tourist trap, but that's what it looked like then. So Prabhupada wrote in those Jaladuta prayers. Of course, we know the famous verse, forgive me for murdering the Bengali here. Nachao, Prabhu, Nachao se mate, Kastera putali jata, Nachao se mate. Make me dance, make me dance. Oh Lord, just like a puppet in your hands, make me dance as you like. So anyway, the translation of some of those prayers from his Jaladuta poem. And what I want you to hear in this, or what I hope is evident in this, is Prabhupada's embracing this contradiction of confidence in Krishna and confidence in devotional service, but his sense of personal disqualification, how he's perfectly contrasting these and resolving them. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I can guess that you have got some business here. Otherwise, why should you call me to this demonic place? Most of the population here is covered by ignorance and passion, by the ignorance and passion modes of nature, and I do not know how they will be able to understand the transcendental messages of Vasudeva. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible, because you are the most expert mystic. Therefore, I am simply praying for your mercy so that I can be able to convince them about your message. But because I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen, therefore I am seeking your benediction so that I may be able to convince them about this Krishna consciousness. Somehow or other, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now it is up to you to make a success or failure as you like. You are the Lord of the whole creation. So if you like, you can make my powers of speaking as suitable so they can understand. By your causeless mercy only, my words may become transcendently pure. And I am sure when such transcendental message is penetrated in their hearts, certainly they will feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. I am just like a puppet in your hands, and you have brought me here. Now you can make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor I have any knowledge, but still I have been designated as Bhakti Vedanta. Now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board the ship Jaladuta, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, September 18th, 1965. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, please feel free to speak up. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Again, a wonderful class. I always, I hear the scriptures, the classes on Bhagavatam, and then I hear about Prabhupada, I hear all the things he has done. But the way the last point that you made, what you want us to take away today is the contrast. Thank you for I am never able to see it. I'm not quite there yet. I'm never able to, but I'm always amazed when it is pointed out to me how Srila Prabhupada, I mean, embodied everything that he spoke about, that he understood, that he took in. And this week, I mean, you know, we've been having all kinds of gatherings, and it's a time for us to realize and be grateful for all that we have. And that is all I can say is I'm just so grateful for being able to hear all of this, that I have been given this opportunity. What did I do to deserve? I'm not going to even think about it, but just so grateful, so thankful that we have this association, this opportunity, this place, this temple, access to these books. Not quite ready to understand everything, but at least I am here. And thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. We're all in process. And in connection with that, I'll just say one little thing. Years ago, before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was getting a little interested, and I had several books. I went away to school for 1 year, and I had books I bought from the New York Temple: Bhagavad Gita, First Canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion. And at that time, there was only one volume of the Lilamrita. The second volume, Planting the Seed, was the first. It's the second volume, but it was the first one published. And I remember reading Planting the Seed and thinking, oh, all the philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita and all of the pastimes and philosophy and information in the Bhagavatam and all of the nectar in the Nectar of Devotion is exemplified in the life of Srila Prabhupada, but in reading Planting the Seed. And that was like there were so many things, but that was one of the key things that tipped me over to understanding that, yes, this is actually something to devote my life to. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment? Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. I do appreciate it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Is there any announcement or news for tonight, aside from regular Sunday feast?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Acharya Prabhu.
Thank you.
Tonight, wonderful class. As Mother Shobharade said, I echo her thoughts on that. It's very, very, very nice.
You're too
to
kind.
hear. So tonight, yes, we have a Sunday Feast program. No other special announcement other than actually coming up this week is next Saturday is Gita Jayanti.
Jai.
So on that day, we'll be doing two activities. So that's not this Sunday or this weekend, but next weekend. Just want to put it out there. We'll be just going out to Rittenhouse Square, setting up a book table, distributing Bhagavad Gitas on that day. If you want to join us, we'll leave the temple around 1:30. If you want to meet us, 1 o'clock. If you want to meet us down there, we'll set up around 1:30. And then in the evening, we'll be reading the Bhagavad Gita, the English translations in its entirety, starting at 5 p.m. next Saturday. Next Sunday at around 1 o'clock, we'll start with the Sanskrit. On Sunday, we'll do the Sanskrit recitation before the Sunday feast next week.
Excellent. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Once again, thank you, everybody, for attending. Everyone have an excellent day. Please accept my obeisances. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripasindubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu.